A midnight call about my father's heart attack made me drop everything and fly home immediately, but instead of a hospital, I was dragged into a family meeting where they forced me to sign papers giving up all my assets. Mom crying, sister begging, uncles surrounding me, all acting to steal 10 years of my hard work. My father wasn't sick at all. It was the most calculated scam my own blood family could devise. But they had no idea I was preparing a revenge that would make them all pay the ultimate price. What happens when a child discovers their own parents have been lying and scheming? The ending will shock you. But before we go on, drop in the comments where you're watching from. Give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Alright, let's enjoy the listen. We're starting. When the call came deep into the night, I was still at the office. Mom's name flashed on the phone screen. My heart started pounding anxiously, as if I already knew something terrible was about to happen.
Claire.
Mom's voice broke into hysterics. Dad, they took him with a heart attack. You have to come right away. I felt everything inside me tighten up. Dad and I were never close, but he was still my dad, and the thought of him dying terrified me. Without a second thought, I dropped everything. Important meetings, client projects. On autopilot, I bought a ticket for the nearest flight, didn't even stop home for my things. The flight felt endless. The whole way, I prayed silently, just let me make it in time, just let Dad be alive. At the airport, my cousin Dylan picked me up, and he seemed suspiciously cheerful for the situation. I rushed at him with questions. How's Dad? What hospital is he in? Dylan hesitated a bit, then awkwardly said, He's home now, I think. Doctors said it wasn't serious. Just overworked. His eyes darted away, avoiding mine. My heart twinged with doubt again, but I chalked it up to exhaustion and stress. Dylan had always been a little odd. On the way home, I remember my childhood. My parents owned a small business, a little hardware store that Dad saw as his life's work. But from early on, I knew I'd go my own way. I moved to the city for school, built a career in tech, something my parents clearly weren't proud of. I was the black sheep, the one who chose a strange city and ambition over family business and traditions. Pulling up to the house, I saw no ambulance or doctors around. The silence and bright lights in the windows put me on edge. Walking in, I froze. The whole family was at the table. Mom, Dad, Sister Brittany, Uncle Reginald, and our family lawyer, Mr. Leonard Cartwright. Dad looked fine, tired, but not like someone who'd just nearly died. And here's our heroine, Dad said with a cold smile. Kept us waiting. His tone sent a chill down my spine. What the hell is going on? They started talking fast, too fast, about debts, tough times in the business, the need to sign papers right away. I listened in a daze until the lawyer handed me a folder. Claire, it's just a formality, you understand, Mom soothed. I opened the documents and instantly realized this wasn't help. It was a straight-up waiver of all my property. My apartment in the city, my savings, my share in the company I'd built for 10 years. My heart raced wildly, my vision blurred. Parents, sister, uncle, all staring at me expectantly. This was a carefully planned trap, disguised as a family tragedy. They knew I wouldn't refuse if it was about Dad's health. Come on, sign it, Brittany said softly, with a forced smile like a bad actress. I felt my blood boil with rage, but I decided to play their game on my terms. I took the pen and started signing, knowing everything was about to change. My heart pounded like crazy. I slowly flipped through the pages, pretending to sign each one. The relatives around the table smiled nervously, clearly relaxing. My sister Brittany even started chattering cheerfully, as if we were celebrating a family holiday, not pulling off this shameful scam. I scanned the room. The house where I'd spent my childhood and youth felt foreign and cold. I remembered leaving for the city the first time, how Mom cried, accusing me of betraying family values. Dad didn't even come out to say goodbye, seeing my choice as a personal insult. Now, after all these years, it turned out their reproaches and tears were just an act. They couldn't forgive me for succeeding on my own, without their advice or help, in that distant capital. And now, all they cared about was my money and assets, earned through backbreaking work. After the last signature, I slammed the folder shut and handed it to the lawyer, Mr. Leonard Cartwright. He grabbed the papers with a satisfied nod to the relatives. "See, Claire, that wasn't so hard, was it?" Mom smiled, trying to look affectionate. I looked at her calmly and felt a cold, heavy rage building inside. "You know," I said quietly, clearly, enunciating every word, "these signatures are invalid." Absolute silence fell over the room. It seemed even the clock on the wall stopped ticking. Brittany glanced at Mom in alarm. Dad paled and slowly stood up. "What are you talking about?" he said, trying to hide his anger with a trembling voice. I smiled calmly. "I didn't actually sign a single page for real. Those are just scribbles, nothing more. If you take these papers anywhere, you'll be in trouble, believe me." Mom's face went white as paper. Brittany jumped up and started pacing the room in panic. "How could you, Claire?" she shrieked. "We're family. We need to help each other." "Help?" My voice was even emotionless. "You tricked me into coming here, saying Dad was dying. You used my love and worry to steal everything I earned with my own hands. That's not help, Brittany, that's theft." Dad finally stepped closer to me. Open hatred burned in his eyes. "I always knew you were selfish," he hissed. "Always thinking only of yourself. We raised you, gave you life. And now you're turning your back on us in our hardest moment." I met his gaze straight on, feeling completely free for the first time in years. "No, Dad, you turned your back on me. You chose to use me instead of asking for help honestly. But I won't be your victim. Not anymore." I stood up sharply and headed for the door. Behind me, the relatives' voices rose, trying to hold me back with threats and pleas. The last was Uncle Reginald's. "Claire, wait, let's talk this out calmly." I didn't even turn around, slamming the door loud behind me. Outside, I gulped the cold night air. My path now led not to a hotel, but somewhere else entirely. I headed straight to the bank to secure my accounts and assets right away. Pausing for a moment, I looked back at the house. Lights still burned in the windows, silhouettes of my relatives flickering behind the curtains. Inside me, it felt unpleasantly empty and bitter. Now I knew for sure I'd never call this place home again. I walked forward, understanding the hardest part was still ahead. But I'd never let anyone toy with my life again. After that heavy family confrontation, everything blurred before my eyes. The sleepless night brought no peace, and I woke up shattered in the morning. But a decision had ripened. I had to understand why my closest people had chosen to treat me so cruelly. Only one person could give answers, my cousin Dylan. He never could keep secrets, always spilling everything. I headed to the cafe on the edge of town where he liked to sit mornings with his coffee. Seeing me, Dylan flinched, his coffee cup clinking pitifully on the saucer. "Claire, what are you doing here?" His eyes darted, like he wanted to bolt. "I need answers, Dylan," I said coldly, sitting across from him. "And I suggest you don't dodge, or we'll talk to the police." He glanced around nervously and sighed heavily, dropping his gaze. "Believe me, Claire, I didn't want any of this. They just pulled me in like always. You know how our family is? Tell me everything from the start, what's really going on." Dylan sipped his coffee to calm down and started stammering it out. "Your dad got into serious debt. The store's been losing money for ages, business going downhill. He tried to scrape by, took a bank loan, then another from somewhere else, but nothing helped. No money left and interest piling up every day. Plus, Dad got mixed up in some shady deals with a partner who ripped him off and vanished with the cash. And Mom and Brittany, they knew?" Dylan nodded grimly. "Oh, they knew all right. They figured the only way to not end up on the street or in court was you and your money. They needed your assets to cover the debts and pay off the creditors. They thought you wouldn't catch on, especially if you believed Dad was on death's door." I felt something snap inside me. My own family, people I'd known my whole life, calmly decided to rob me, hiding behind Dad's fake illness. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a stab in the back. Why didn't anyone tell me straight? Why stage this whole show? They were afraid you'd say no. You know how they always said, "Claire's far away, living in the city. She doesn't care about us." And then Uncle Reginald came up with the idea, to fake the heart attack. He said it'd work for sure. And the lawyer, he's in on it too. Mr. Leonard Cartwright's getting a cut, of course. They paid him to make it all look legit and convince you to sign. Dylan looked at me with pity and shame, as if only now realizing how dirty it all was. Thanks for telling me. I stood up, feeling like if I stayed another minute, I'd break. And Dylan, think about whether it's worth staying part of the show, because their next stop is definitely jail. I stepped out of the cafe into the fresh air and felt my body shaking with anger and bitterness. I dialed my lawyer, attorney Sophia Lang, who'd worked with me for years in the city. My voice was firm and resolute. Sophia, we need to meet urgently. Looks like my family went down the dirtiest path, and I have to get ahead of them. She listened calmly and replied shortly, "Come to my office, we'll sort it. Most important, don't talk to them anymore." Hanging up, I realized one thing. The time for pitying them was over. They chose this road themselves, so now they'd face the consequences. Wrapping up all the legal documents took the whole day. With attorney Sophia Lang, we worked fast, step by step, blocking any paths for the family to my property. We updated powers of attorney, changed main bank passwords. I signed orders to block third-party access to all my assets. The process was strict and merciless, just as it should be when betrayal's involved. Late that evening, leaving the lawyer's office, I felt a strange lightness for the first time in days. Like a huge stone was slowly rolling off my soul. But relaxing was too soon. The next day, my bank in the city called. The manager I'd worked with for years sounded surprised and wary. "Miss Claire, documents came in today from third parties. A request to redistribute funds from your investment accounts." My vision darkened for a second. "Who exactly submitted it?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "The papers are supposedly signed by you, but our security flagged mismatched signatures right away. We're investigating." I thanked them for their vigilance and immediately called Sophia Lang back. We agreed to act fast. We needed to officially record the fraud attempt and pass everything to law enforcement. Within a day, the bank sent us copies of the documents my family tried to use. I stared at them in disbelief. My signatures were copied crudely, sloppily, like someone was in a rush. What shocked me most was the audacity. They tried this right now, knowing I was here, knowing I was watching everything. This act wiped away the last traces of regret in my soul. Now, it wasn't just a family fight or grudge. It was a crime. The next day, my lawyer and I officially filed a police report on the fraud attempt. Attached were all the proofs: phone call records, bank docs, copies of the fake signatures. At the same time, Sophia Lang contacted the bank's lawyers to file their own complaint. That strengthened our position big time. This wasn't a private dispute anymore. It was about undermining financial security. That evening, I got another call. This time, Uncle Reginald. "Claire, let's settle this without the cops." His voice was tense, but he tried to sound friendly. "We can fix everything. Money's not the main thing. We were just scared. Dad's panicking, Mom's crying." I listened silently. The words slid past, not touching me. They were pressing on pity again. But I knew if I gave in even a bit, it'd happen all over. "It's already decided," I replied calmly. "We have different paths now, and your problems aren't mine anymore." I turned off the phone for good this time. I spent the rest of the evening with a strong cup of tea by the hotel window, watching the lights fade outside, thinking, I once dreamed of coming home, celebrating holidays, laughing around the table, being part of the family. But now I understood that home I loved as a kid was gone long ago. In its place were just ruins. I felt no more pain, no hatred, just cold clarity. Ahead lay a new life. Without illusions, without people who called themselves family only when it suited them. A week passed since I filed the police report. All that time, I tried to live normally, worked remotely, met with the lawyer, answered client emails. But inside, a weird mix of anxiety and resolve brewed. I knew any moment the real action could start. Searches, summons, family accounts frozen. And though I knew it was fair, my heart clenched at how far those I'd once called closest had fallen. The first call came Friday evening. Attorney Sophia Lang. Claire, the police started the investigation. This morning, first requests went to the bank and tax office. I nodded silently, though she couldn't see. My heart thumped dully in my chest. This was the inevitable moment. Plus, she added, the bank filed their own report on financial fraud. Your dad and uncle are the main suspects. I sat on the couch, feeling cold spread through my body. The next day, a neighbor of my parents called, the kind old Mr. Harold Jenkins, who lived across the street. Claire, police were at your folks' house, he asked worriedly. Men in uniform, cars. I thanked him for the info, and hung up. So it had begun. I felt no joy, no gloating, no triumph, just heavy, dull sorrow. Still, despite everything, this was my family. But deep down, I knew they had a choice. They could have asked for help honestly, told the truth. Instead, they picked lies, manipulation, and forgery. They signed their own sentence. A few more days passed. The phone rang again. An unknown number on the screen. I didn't want to answer, but something made me. Claire, Mom sobbed on the other end. Please, save us. Everything's falling apart. They want to arrest Dad. I stayed silent. We didn't think it'd turn out like this, she mumbled. We just wanted to survive. Those words should have stirred sympathy. Maybe before, but now I heard no remorse in them, just fear of punishment. Mom, I finally spoke calmly. When you decided to forge my signatures, did you think about me? About how I'd be left with nothing, how I'd explain to the bank or court that I didn't sign those papers. Mom went quiet. You didn't care, I continued. The main thing was saving yourselves. I heard her sobs, felt my heart squeeze, but I knew I couldn't let myself get dragged into their chaos again. You want us in jail? She asked quietly. No, Mom. I just want everyone to answer for their actions. I hung up. The next day, my suspicions were confirmed. A message from the lawyer. Police seized the parents' property, house, car, bank account. No formal charges yet, but the process was in full swing. Brittany, it turned out, had fled abroad on vacation, but now they were looking for her to question. I sat in the hotel room, staring out at the city's endless bustle, and suddenly realized, nothing holds me here anymore. Not this city that's turned cold, not the people who were once my family. I made the final decision to cut all ties with the past. That same evening, I sent the last documents to the lawyer. Waivers of all legal obligations, inheritance rights, shares in the family business, everything linking me to that world. I drew the line not out of revenge, not anger, but for myself. After all the signed waivers and documents, I felt a whole chapter of my life ending. A chapter full of pain, deceit, disappointment, but also liberation. I rented a place in another town, picked a spot where no one knew me. A small, cozy town where streets drowned quietly in greenery and passers-by looked each other in the eye without hostility. The first days, I just wandered the streets aimlessly, listened to birds chirping, breathed in the smell of fresh bread from the local bakery. Only then did I realize how long it had been since I just lived. Without tension, without constant worry, without fear of betrayal. No more heavy burden of family expectations. No more endless fight for their approval, for their love, which, it turned out, never existed. I lived lightly, and, for the first time in years, for myself. News about the family came in fragments. Some old neighbor mentioned the parents' house stood empty, up for sale, through an agency. Dad, they said, spent more time traveling to courts. Mom was trying to get benefits. My sister hadn't returned from abroad, trying to start a new life there. I listened calmly, without joy or anger, just as an outsider. My lawyer reported the investigation was moving slow, but steady. If lucky, the family might get probation. If not, real consequences were inevitable. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I stopped answering calls and messages, closed all old social media accounts, moved to a new home, put everything in my name, told no one the address. The past stayed where it belonged, behind me. I started a new life from scratch, a clean slate, without a family dragging me down, without old grudges, without trying to prove my worth to those who never acknowledged it. And though sometimes at holidays my heart aches, seeing families laugh at the next table, grandmas hugging grandkids, I don't let myself regret. I chose myself. I chose self-respect. I chose freedom. If someone asked if I regret anything, I'd say, no, I only regret not taking this step sooner. If my story touched your heart, be sure to support it with a like. Write in the comments if you've had to make that tough choice between family and yourself. Your experience matters a lot. It might help someone in a similar spot right now. Subscribe to our channel. We have tons of real-life stories like this, full of pain, strength, and true victories. We drop a new video every day to inspire you, to remind you, you can start over anytime. And definitely share this video with friends. Maybe for someone, this story will be the support and hope they need in a tough time. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. See you in the next story.